Okay, so I'm going to give you a little in-depth tour here of the Z4. What this is a 2013 BMW Z4 2.8i. So that is the 4-cylinder turbo. They also had a couple different models, the 3.0 and the 3.5, I believe, and both of them were the inline 6 with the twin turbos. So this doesn't have quite as much grunt as that, but at the same time, this will be a very fun unit here. So I can get a little shot of the engine. As you can see, most of the engine was fine. So I've already done some work, being that I'm going to be starting this video kind of in the middle of the project. I'll link a picture here of what it looked like when I bought it at the auction. The intake tube here, that's already been replaced. That goes down to the turbo, that's down in there. The hood I've already replaced. So I found one, being that these are fairly rare cars. This wasn't an easy thing to find, unfortunately. Most of the things I've worked on, like Corvettes and such, much easier to find parts for. But being a Z4, they made 1,200 of these, or actually they sent 1,200 of these to the US in 2013. So, and this body style went from 2009 to 2017 or 18, I believe. So there's not a lot of these in the US, but it's a very interesting car. The thing that drew me to it was that it is a retractable hardtop. So if you don't know what that is, it's a convertible, but it's got a hard roof. And what that does is it separates and it goes down, folds into the trunk, and turns it into a true convertible. So it's nice. You don't have the noise of a soft top. When you have the top up, you have a kind of a normal car, a full coupe. But when you want a convertible in the summer, you can simply put the roof down and it goes into the trunk. So when I got this car, it did not run. I had no idea if it would run or not. Wouldn't start. So the first thing I did was start with the usual stuff, hooking up a jumper box, and you'll see right there, there's a positive cable attachment, and then any of the grounds under the hood. So I tried to start it that way because everything on the car is electronic, including the trunk release. Well, unfortunately, there was still no power to the car, so I could not get the trunk open. So after playing around with that for a couple frustrating hours, I realized that there is a ski hole. Not like you'd ever take this car to the mountains, but I suppose if you did, there's a ski hole. So going through there, I was able to find a way to take a tool. And if you're familiar with most new cars, one of the safety standards is to have this right here. This little glow-in-the-dark emergency handle. If you were to be in the trunk of this car, which would be all but impossible unless you were 2.5 feet tall. But nonetheless, I knew this would be there, and I was able to hook this, manually pop the trunk open, and then I could get to the battery. Well, the battery's in the back, of course, and you can see some of the wiring here. And turns out the problem was that underneath on the positive cable, they have, you see this wire here, it's hooked up to the airbag system. So when it gets in a front accident, it fires a little charge which blows apart this piece right here. And then it takes away the positive connection. So no matter how much I would jump it from the front, it would have never done anything because it wasn't, the battery would only go to the dash. It would light up the dash, but it wouldn't start the car or do anything. So that was actually able to plug that right back in. Pretty simple. I've got a new one on order, so I'll be replacing this piece just to have obviously the correct part. But that's in place, so I'm able to get power to the whole car now. So that was the first thing, to get that part done. And then after that, started ordering some of the parts. So I had to take apart the front end, take off the broken pieces, which is the core support, the bumper support, headlights, the hood. The fenders on this car are just small pieces on the sides, so there's not a lot to that. Most of it is the front and the bumper and such. So I have ordered those parts. You see the bumper right back there. So I've got the hood, I've got the bumper. I have ordered some parts new from BMW, so I was able to order a core support, which you see right here. Right there, a nice used piece that was in good shape, a little dirty, but in good shape. And the bumper piece, I was not able to find a good one of those, so I actually did order that from BMW brand new. So you can see that right there. And so today I'll be putting some more of this together. We've got the hood on, a few other things. It does run, but what we're gonna do today is start putting together the core support. There's two brackets that go on either side of the radiator and the intercooler down below. So we'll be putting those on today, getting that mounted, and then go to the core support and then the bumper. All right, now we're gonna get started. Excuse my mess in the background here. I had, obviously I've had several cars over the last couple of years, and I tend to collect some of the extra parts and such off that. So I will be cleaning this up, but in the meantime, I do still have some shelves full of a lot of extra parts that I don't need, and I probably should be putting on Craigslist or eBay. But let's get started. Okay, so I've come to the realization that I have forgotten a piece. So I did order a used radiator. The intercooler is in good shape. It's got a couple bent fins, but I'll be straightening that out. So no big deal there. Overall, the intercooler is in good shape, and it doesn't look like I have any problem holding the pressure. So we're going to keep that. Do this on a budget build, but we are missing the air conditioning condenser. Just realize that now. We do not have one of those, and that's what's going to fit in the brackets here that we're missing. So we'll get one of those ordered, but for now we'll put it together so we can at least get the front end together. We can always put that in pretty quickly before we get to the rest of it. So that's where we're at. Okay, so now that we've got these brackets on, I did want to test fit this because I did have one question as I was putting this together. So one of the things that was damaged was this right front frame rail, and unfortunately I don't have any video of how I corrected that, but it was twisted off to the right. So what I did is put the aluminum bracket from the bumper on the front to extend it out to get better leverage, and then put a come along over on the far end of it, and then strapped it to my 6,000-pound Chevy Tahoe that was parked next to it in the garage or the driveway when it was a little nicer out. And I was able to pull this back in with some MAP gas and heating this up. There was no physical damage to it except for it being bent. I will be straightening that out and touching up any welds if it needs to be, but there was no cuts or damage to the steel. So that was in good shape, but what I am seeing is that it does need to come over another 1/4 inch or so. So I think what I'm going to be doing here is now taking the radiator and this such out and pulling this back in that extra distance, unless there's a way to manipulate the bracket. The bracket might be, actually no, it looks like the bracket is just bent instead of the frame rail. The frame rail is pretty straight. So it looks like if we can just push this bracket over just a little bit, we'll get the clearance we need. Like I said, it's about 1/4 inch. There's going to be a little bit of fudge factor in some of these things, so we will be able to, I believe, be able to straighten that out. If we can't get it with the bracket, then we'll have to go and straighten it out just a little more. But I think we're close enough to be able to just do this. So let's work on that. Turns out the bracket itself was just pushed down out at the bottom, and that was the reason that this radiator bracket wasn't sitting down there flush. All I had to do was bend that in to be straight, and now it lines up perfect. Sometimes the solution's easier than it looks. Start mounting the core support. We've got the brackets on the sides of the radiator and the intercooler here. Everything lines up nice and neat. Screws are in the bottom and on the top. Everything's locked in tight. Time for the core support. see I moved around from different parts, from tightening the nuts on the bumper, which also mounts the core support. But at the same time, you'll see that almost any time you're putting used parts on a different car, there's going to be a little bit of fitment issue. So what I like to do is kind of put all the bolts in initially and then tighten them down, move it around, tighten it. So at certain points, so that it all lines up. If you just tighten, say this front part, it might be tough to align this top. So knowing that they came off different cars, they're both used, there's going to be a little bit of variance even on a BMW. So that was the reason for that, but we've got it all cinched up now, and the next part, we've got to hook up the horns, put the top on here, and then start putting some of the plastic shielding around this edge, and then we'll get ready to test fit the headlights and the bumper.